Chapter 1. The confusion that slowly takes over. You send a message. It is not even something complicated, just a simple, hey, or maybe something slightly meaningful. You see it delivered, and then, nothing. Minutes pass, then hours, sometimes even a full day. And in that silence, something starts happening inside your mind. You begin to ask yourself questions. Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Are they losing interest? And the more time passes, the more intense these questions become. Now here is the tricky part. When they finally reply, everything seems normal. Maybe they are even warm, friendly, or engaging. And that confuses you even more. Because now you are stuck between two realities. One reality says, they take too long to reply, so maybe they do not care. The other reality says, but when they do reply, it feels fine, so maybe I am overthinking. This back and forth creates emotional instability. You do not know where you stand. And this is exactly what we are going to clear up. In this video, I will explain exactly why some people take long to reply, what it actually means psychologically, and most importantly, how to correctly interpret their behavior without overthinking or misleading yourself. Because the truth is not as simple as, they are busy, or, they do not care. It is more layered than that. And once you understand it clearly, your confusion will disappear. Chapter 2. What your mind automatically assumes. When someone takes long to reply, your brain does not stay neutral. It does not calmly wait for information. Instead, it starts filling in the gaps. And if you notice carefully, it almost always fills those gaps with negative assumptions. You begin to feel like you are not a priority. You imagine that they saw your message and chose not to respond. You might even picture them texting someone else while ignoring you. Now this reaction is not random. It is actually rooted in something very human. Your brain is trying to protect you from rejection. If there is uncertainty, your mind would rather assume the worst than stay in the unknown. Because at least then it feels like it is prepared. But here is where most people get confused. Just because your mind feels something strongly does not mean it is accurate. That anxious feeling you get while waiting for a reply, it feels like evidence. But in reality, it is just your interpretation. And if you are not aware of this, you will start reacting to your assumptions instead of reality. So before we even analyze their behavior, it is important to separate what you feel from what is actually happening. Because this is where most misunderstandings begin. Chapter 3. Not all delayed replies mean the same thing. Now this is important to understand. People often treat late replies as a single category, as if it always means the same thing. But if you look closely, there are actually different types of delayed responses, and each one comes from a different mindset. Sometimes, a person replies late because they are genuinely occupied. Their attention is fully consumed by work, responsibilities, or mental exhaustion. Sometimes, they reply late because texting is not a priority for them. Not because you are not important, but because communication through messages is simply not how they engage emotionally. And then, there is another type. The kind where they delay intentionally. Not necessarily to manipulate, but because they are unsure about their level of interest. So instead of engaging fully, they keep things at a distance. Now here is where things get complicated. From your side, all three situations look the same. You just see, late reply. But internally, the reasons are completely different. And if you do not learn to differentiate between them, you will either overestimate someone's interest, or underestimate it. So instead of asking, why are they replying late? The better question is, what kind of late reply is this? Because that is where clarity begins. Chapter 4. The role of emotional investment. If you observe carefully, one pattern becomes very clear. People respond faster to what they are emotionally invested in. It is not about how busy someone is. It is about where their attention naturally goes when they have even a small free moment. Think about it honestly. If someone is genuinely excited to talk to you, even in a busy schedule, they will find small windows to respond. Maybe not instantly every time, but consistently enough that you feel their presence. On the other hand, if the emotional investment is low, the response becomes something they get to later. Not urgent, not ignored, just delayed. And this is where it becomes a little uncomfortable to accept. Because sometimes, when someone takes long to reply, it is not about circumstances. It is about priority. But this does not always mean they dislike you. It simply means, you are not occupying a strong emotional space in their mind yet. And understanding this difference is very important. Because many people jump from, they reply late, to, they do not care at all. But the reality sits somewhere in between. They might like you, just not enough to prioritize you consistently. And we will come to what that actually means for your situation. Chapter 5. Mixed signals and why they happen. Now this is where most people get deeply confused. Because the person who replies late is not always cold. In fact, sometimes they are warm, funny, engaging, even attentive, when they do reply. And this creates what we call mixed signals. You start thinking, if they were not interested, why would they talk like this? And at the same time, if they are interested, why do they disappear for hours or days? This contradiction makes it very hard to interpret their behavior. But if you look at it calmly, there is actually a simple explanation. Their interest is inconsistent. It is not strong enough to create urgency, but not weak enough to disappear completely. So what happens is, they engage when they feel like it. When they are bored, relaxed, or emotionally available, they show up. And when they are distracted or focused elsewhere, they pull back. From their perspective, this feels normal. But from your perspective, it feels unstable. Because you are trying to find a clear pattern, and there isn't one. And this is exactly why mixed signals feel so emotionally draining. Not because of what they are doing, but because of what you cannot understand. Chapter 6. Your reaction is shaping the situation. Now, if you think about it carefully, your reaction to their delayed replies also plays a role here. If you start overthinking, checking your phone constantly, or replying instantly every time they finally respond, you are unknowingly creating an imbalance. You begin to invest more emotionally than they are. And this shifts the dynamic. They feel less pressure to respond quickly because they know you will still be there, while you feel more anxious because their responses control your emotional state. This is not about playing games. It is about understanding energy. When one person is consistently more available than the other, the value of their attention decreases in the other person's mind. Not consciously, but psychologically. And this is where many people unintentionally push themselves into a position where they feel less important. So the issue is not just their delayed replies. It is also how much weight you are giving to those replies. Chapter 7. What it actually means, the clear truth. Now let us bring everything together. If someone consistently takes a long time to reply, but still responds in a decent or friendly way, what does it actually mean? It means this: you are an option, not a priority. That is the most accurate and honest interpretation. It does not mean they hate you. It does not mean they are playing you intentionally. And it does not mean you are doing something wrong. It simply means, you are not at the top of their emotional attention. And once you understand this clearly, something important happens. You stop trying to decode every message. Because now you are not confused anymore. You are not asking, what does this mean? You already know, and that clarity removes a lot of emotional stress. Because uncertainty is what creates anxiety, not the truth itself. Chapter 8. What you should do instead. Now that you understand what is actually happening, the next question becomes, what should you do? And this is where many people make mistakes. They either confront aggressively, or they try harder to get attention. But neither approach works in the long run. Instead, what you need to do is something much simpler. Match their level of investment. Not in a petty or calculated way, but in a grounded, self-respecting way. If they take hours to reply, you do not need to be instantly available every time. If their engagement is casual, you keep yours balanced too. At the same time, you shift your focus back to your own life. Because the more your emotional state depends on their replies, the less control you have over your own peace. And this is important, because the goal is not to make them respond faster. The goal is to stop their response time from controlling how you feel. Chapter 9. When it is actually worth addressing. There are situations where delayed replies are not just a pattern, but a problem. And that usually happens when there is already an emotional connection or expectation. If someone claims to care about you, shows interest in person, but consistently disappears in communication, then it is worth addressing. Not with accusations, but with clarity. You can simply express that inconsistency confuses you. Because in that case, it is not about reading signals anymore. It is about aligning behavior with intention. And if they cannot do that, then their actions are already giving you your answer. Without needing further explanation. Chapter 10. The final understanding. At the end of all this, the real answer is actually very simple. People make time for what feels important to them. Not perfectly, not always instantly, but consistently enough that you do not feel confused. So when someone takes long to reply again and again, the message is not hidden. It is just uncomfortable to accept. You are not a priority in their current emotional world. And once you truly understand this, not just logically, but emotionally, you stop chasing clarity from them. Because you already have it. And from that point, your decisions become much easier. You stop overthinking, you stop waiting, and most importantly, you stop lowering your own value just to fit into someone else's inconsistent attention.